Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London. I'm looking this morning at a book which has come to us, which we've looked at before, from the Child Poverty Action Group, which is an important charity. They do some tremendous work for us, legal work that is, apart from all the other endeavours that they carry out. This particular book is very important because it's looking at in substantial areas which are directly relevant to a very large number of people in this country. What I'm looking at today is the CPAG'S Housing Benefit and Council Tax Reduction Legislation book, now in a 27th edition for 2014 to 15. The original commentary was by Lorna Findlay, and it's been revised now by Poynter, Carolyn, Stewart, Wright, Martin Williams and Susan Mitchell. And it's, as I say, it's an important book because of the nature of both housing benefit itself and council tax, notwithstanding changes that are taking place and probably further changes after the general election on the 7th of May. I'm recording this in March 2015, just before the budget. Then we have the general election and we'll see what comes later. But this is the current book which is on the market looking at the legislation. Now we've given it the title For Housing Law Practitioners and Advisors, Indispensable Guidance on Housing Benefit and Council Tax Reduction, now in a new 27th edition from the Child Poverty Action Group. My wife Elizabeth and I discussed the book and we had a look at it. It's a heavy book, it's actually a paperback. It's a heavy book though. You see the front, there's the side, the spine, and there's the detail on the back, which gives you some idea of the content, and there's some quotes as well. One is packed with relevant information in an easily portable format. Exactly so. Be careful though, because the pages are quite thin, but you can see, because it's running to 1,750 odd pages, there's the index, there's obviously a huge amount of information. By the way, the index is quite detailed, and you can see again if I just show you that there. Now if we go into the book itself, it's structured in a similar way to a number of normal legal publications. These are actually regulations, so they are standard regulations set out from Parliament and from the various people, and then there are, as you can probably see, general notes on the side to go with the regulations, so you can find things reasonably easily. Obviously this is a book about legislation. You're looking at the housing benefit regulations here from 2006. And again you've got the actual regulations, then you've got any amendments that have come in since. So what they've tried to do is to make it as easy as possible. You can see there are further amendments added there. So you've got the basis of what the statement of the law is, the regulations and so on. Then you've got all of the various amendments. And then at the front you've got, again there's the main front page there. Then you've also got some very experienced people, if I may say so, who are involved in this. There is the contents page. I'd like to pay tribute to all of them for the work they've done on this, because it's not an easy area by any means. There are the various parts that are set out there. Again on the next page, there are 8 parts in total. Then there's an important foreword from the editors, which I think is well worth having a read. It's always worth reading the foreword to get some idea of what the changes are and everything else. What I do find interesting is they do start by talking about universal credit, which of course is coming in as I speak, general information on what is happening at the moment. Now I have no idea what's going to happen in the future, but obviously what they've tried to do is to produce what the current position is. There's a table of cases, and then what you've got after that are the regulations themselves, various tables, and then we go straight into the main. It actually sets out, there's relevant information for Wales for instance as well. It sets out a whole range of different pieces of information, and part 1 starts main primary legislation, housing benefit and so on. Then it runs all the way through. So I say it's an important book because I think at the moment there's a lot of misunderstanding probably about what's happening, a lot of confusion about the concepts that are being brought in, whether you agree with them or not. The fact is they are taking place, and we've got to know how to deal with them. Whether that's right or wrong, whether they stay, we don't know. But at the moment, that's what's coming in, and it may well be that, subject to if there's a change of government, there could be some changes, but I suspect what we've got at the moment will last for probably a couple of years anyway. Let me tell you what we say anyway about the book. Once again, the admirable Child Poverty Action Group has launched its latest edition, now the 27th, of this massive yet handy guide. And the title, of course, is self-explanatory: Housing Benefit and Council Tax Reduction, the legislation for 2014 to 15. It's well established and highly regarded, and the book makes a major and certainly vital contribution, we think, to the aims of the Child Poverty Action Group, which promotes action for the prevention and relief of poverty among children and families with children. Part of the group's remit is to research, recommend and ultimately action whatever measures are deemed necessary to alleviate and ultimately eliminate child poverty. The main objective is to make sure that impoverished families get their full entitlements under the law. This is really why this guide and a lot of the other guides that we have reviewed are of such great use. You'll find them in the Citizens Advice Bureaus, and you will certainly find them in the libraries, if we've got any left, which have books in them. But hopefully there will be available, so you can actually try and find the information. And actually the books aren't some of them are not too expensive, because one of the problems with legal books is they do tend to cost quite a large amount of money. This edition, the 27th, contains much that is new, a reflection of the fairly numerous developments that have emerged since the publication of the previous edition. So we're now looking at the sort of the financial year annual, if you like, which is coming out. So if you're involved professionally in any way with advising clients as to how to maximise their benefit entitlements while minimising their exposure to the often crippling burden of council tax levels, you'll need to keep the current edition permanently to hand on your desk. And do remember, council tax levels have gone up. I live in Richmond, and it used to be one of the highest in the country. It's actually flattened out a bit because so many other councils have caught up, because the burden on the council taxpayer is very substantial, which is why this book, I think, is again of quite substantial assistance to you. New material includes detailed commentary on tax reduction schemes in Scotland and Wales as well as England. The comparative provisions in these three regions are provided in tables at the back of at the beginning of the book. That's right at the front after the cases. Another new development is the addition of a new Part 6, which covers the valuation tribunal regulations pertaining to council tax reduction. Again, important and a very, actually in my view, quite a complex area, and one that I think a lot of people get a bit afraid of and don't really understand. So it does, I hope, help a little bit by knowing a little bit more about their activities. That's the tribunal. Other changes centre on, for example, size criteria for the local housing allowance and the consequences for the disabled brought about by the rent restriction schemes. Also discussed are the rules for transition from housing benefit to universal credit, which have been amended. As I say, there's a bit right at the front as we enter this new era. There is also commentary on new decisions of the courts and the upper tribunal. We cite here only a few examples of the useful and authoritative commentary contained in this volume, of which is actually nearly 2,000 pages long. It's been produced by a team of experts in what is an ever-changing and complex area of law, and the book has become the standard text for any professional advisor or student involved in this area, including lawyers and the relevant employees of local authorities and housing associations, and I would hope the Citizens Advice Bureaus as well. As the Child Poverty Action Group points out, this book is used in all housing benefit cases coming before the first tier tribunal social entitlement chamber. And to assist finding them, because and to assist hard-pressed advisors even further, this volume provides tables of cases commissioners' decisions and upper tribunal decisions. And it's also worth noting the section on housing benefit regulations and the listings which summarise comparative provisions of tax reduction schemes in Scotland, England and Wales as a formidable research resource. And this is a formidable book in my view. This book can be safely described as indispensable for the professional practitioner in this field, and the publication date is cited at 2014. That's sort of late 2014. So it's a heavy book. It's an important book, this one, and I think, you know, without this sort of information we really would have problems. There's the back again. We really would have problems as practitioners in advising people, because it's all very well saying that ignorance of the law is no excuse, but how do you know what the law is? You've got to have something like this to try to assist you, because frankly it's become incredibly complicated. There's the middle of the book there, you can see what's in it. As I said, there are what you've got is modifications, you can see amendments and general notes. I think they're very helpful if you've got a particular point you're looking for, whatever you might be. Perhaps members of Parliament might find this useful with their case loads, but I mean the information you've got here is, I think, very, very helpful. And then you've got the statutory instruments, and this is the Local Government Finance Act 1992 there, which has been revised and kept completely up to date. What's quite useful is that you could find this information in Halsbury and you could find it elsewhere, but I think you've got it all in one place for this particular area of which is where people may need to advise clients on what the future might hold for them, by way of where we can reduce things and where we can try to get the right result. Because at the end of the day, I have to say, the whole of this area is an absolutely chaotic, detailed minefield. And if anybody really understands it, I would be a bit surprised, because some of this stuff is far too detailed at the end of the day. But however, that's the way it is, and we have to cut our cloth accordingly. Anyway, I'd like to thank the Child Poverty Action Group again for producing these books, because without them we would have a lot of difficulty, I think, as advisors and practitioners. Thank you. And also to all the people, very erudite, worthy persons who know exactly what they're talking about, who are giving us the advice in the first place. We're very grateful, and I thank you all very much. Bye-bye.